Now, I wasn't intentionally planning on making this video, but I really wanted to address this. Now, I'm not entirely sure if the devs had stated about this in the COS server. However, I still wanted to make a video as their decision to do something like this really turned me away from mostly playing the game, and that's probably why you're not seeing me play as often. And you might be wondering what is the problem, and that is the giant weight nerf that they had done to the creatures for Recode. Now, if you aren't aware or didn't hear about this, Recode stats are not the same as the stats in Legacy. Most creatures have gotten a stat change from their Legacy version, meaning they could potentially have better or worse stats than what they had previously. Now, the thing is, while this is somewhat a good thing for some creatures, it wasn't necessarily the best decision, and it definitely affected a lot of things, mainly the tier 5s. Now, I will be showing some examples, and I'm not entirely sure how many creatures they changed the stats for, but I do know they changed stats on some of the most played and important / liked creatures. First off, Helion Warden. Helion Warden, in my personal opinion, is one of the best wardens still to this day. I'm not saying it's godly and that this thing is better than any other tier 5, I'm just saying specifically for being a warden, it's pretty good. At least it was. Helion's weight was 45,000 pounds in Legacy, which was the same as Sonata, which is a tier 4. Now, while this isn't the most weight for a tier 5, it's definitely better than what Verdant Warden weighs. However, like I mentioned earlier, stats have changed for a lot of creatures, and Helion sadly is one of them. They had extremely nerfed this dude's weight by 3/4 of what he originally weighed. So now he only weighs 10,500 pounds, which is very low for a tier 5. This not only affects how Helion can defend itself, but it also affects how well it can withstand attacks from enemies. If you have lots of weight and the opposing target doesn't, they will not do as much damage to you because of the weight difference. However, with this nerf, that'll change that, allowing enemies to easily lower your health and do more damage just because of your weight. I could go on and on with this, with Helion's weight being a major downfall and for any players who may want to play as this creature, but I've got some other creatures I thought I should mention that are also pretty important and were also affected. Lamako Swordon. Lamako is one of the biggest creatures, or rather the tallest creature in the game, still coming in after Boreal, who is still the #1 tallest creature within the game. Lamako always has been one of those creatures that aren't played as often, but when they are, it's either no one messes with them or everyone messes with them. But in most cases, people never really mess with them considering their attack damage and weight, which deterred most people. In Legacy, Lamako was one of the top 3 heaviest creatures, weighing at about 95,000 pounds, coming in just after Graham if I recall. Not to mention she had a whopping 1,100 damage, which I believe was 900 or 1,000, but then eventually they changed it. Because it weighed the most, that meant that Lamako could do way more than its given base damage, which could potentially reach into the 2,000s and more if you had a Void plushie. However, Lamako has been affected by the weight nerf and now comes in at a whopping 45,000 pounds, making it way less than half the weight it used to be. And while this is still a lot of weight, it's not enough, especially for a creature that's more or less a dinosaur. However, what's scary is the fact that Oprah Legion, a flying whale so to say, is merely within the same weight range, meaning if some Oprah player decided to attack you while you're Lamako, you better hope and pray that the Oprah player is terrible at PvP or you manage to break their bones to leave, because the weight difference is not huge and you both won't be doing massive damage to each other, so it's all about luck in this situation. Here's Graham. Remember how I said Lamako came in after Graham with the most weight? Well, now Graham has been moved down and now has less weight than Lamako. Now this could make sense potentially, but if we're being logical, which doesn't exist in COS, then we know nothing weighs more than a giant dinosaur than a bulk of stones imitating a creature. However, this isn't the case, as Graham actually weighs a lot less than Lamako, being at about 38,500 pounds, which isn't a significant weight difference between the two, but it's definitely very different numbers. This means that Graham could actually have a disadvantage with fighting Lamako players, as Lamako could technically do more damage since it weighs more. However, you can also use the Harden ability to give yourself an upper hand, though it's probably best to stay away as Lamako can easily earthquake you and run away. However, I doubt it'd be much of a chase. Oh, and I forgot to mention, Graham used to weigh 100,000 pounds, so it had a very huge weight nerf, losing more than half of its weight. Anyways, that's all I gotta say. If I continue this video, it'll probably end up as long as the movie, and I don't want that. If you enjoy this video or you like listening to people ramble and stuff, please like the video, or not, up to you. If you want to support the channel and see more random COS videos, stick around and possibly subscribe. You might catch the video you'll like. That's all for now. If you made it to the end, here's a cookie. Thank you all for watching and or listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!